I call Dr Shane Retty.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, TPP will benefit New Zealanders and will benefit Māori. Listening to the many public submissions, several themes came through, and today I want to focus on one primarily, that is TPP and the impact on and for Māori. And I want to discuss that under several headings. First of all, Māori engagement and consultation, Māori economic benefits, and then Māori protections. Mr Speaker, as we look at specific TPP engagement with Māori, engagement started way back in 2008 with MFAT, where they put out public submissions. They also did the same in 2011. Now, back in 2008, Ngāti Kahungunu Incorporated were one of the first to reply to public submissions, followed over the time with meetings with the Federation of Māori Authorities and Te Ohu Rata. Specific TPP engagement clearly occurred with Māori, but MFAT had wider engagement with the Māori business community, which of course took into account TPP as well. In fact, as part of that wider outreach program, MFAT had engagement with Miraka Dairy Limited, Tuaropaki, Sea Lord, Aotearoa Fisheries Limited, Waikato Milking Systems, Te Ohu Kaimoana, Te Awanui Hukupak, Tainui Group Holdings Limited, Ngāi Tahu Holdings Limited, Te Ruranga o Ngāi Tahu and Te Tumu Pairoa, the Māori trustee. Clearly, a widespread of Māori businesses were engaged in a general capacity with MFAT in quite a short time frame, between 2000 and 2015, so quite contemporaneously. So I would make the case that where we heard from some submitters that Māori engagement and consultation didn't occur, quite clearly it did. I want to move on to Māori economic benefits. The Bill 2013 Māori Economy Report, commissioned by Te Puni Kokiri, valued the Māori asset base at $40 billion. Significant amounts of Māori assets are orientated towards the primary sector and the export sector. Therefore, Māori can expect to benefit from a free trade agreement like this. In fact, Māori own between 10 to 40% of key primary sectors, including red meat, dairy, kiwi fruit, forestry and seafood. Māori will benefit from this free trade agreement, from tariff savings and the other benefits that come from it. Mr Speaker, turning to Māori protections, the Treaty of Waitangi carve out TPP Article 29.6 states in Clause 1, "Nothing in this agreement shall preclude the adoption by New Zealand of measures it deems necessary to accord more favourable treatment to Māori in respect of matters covered by this agreement, including in fulfilment of its obligations under the Treaty of Waitangi." Clause 2 further goes on to say, "The parties agree that the interpretation of the Treaty of Waitangi, including as to the nature of the rights and obligations arising under it, shall not be subject to the dispute settlement provisions of this agreement." That's ISDS. Now, Mr Speaker, as we also look at further protections, the Waitangi Tribunal looked at this agreement, and they made several statements. Their findings, of course, were generally in favour. The Treaty of Waitangi clause, and I quote here, the Treaty of Waitangi clause in the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement should provide a reasonable degree of protection to Māori interests, straight from the Waitangi Tribunal, and that the inclusion of treaty clauses in the TPPA and earlier trade agreements was to the credit of successive New Zealand governments. Now, the Tribunal did note other issues, I accept that, but they made no findings against them. Mr Speaker, I've focused on just one part of the TPP, primarily of importance to Māori. And Māori are, of course, generally seeking, in a global context, generally seeking distribution of assets and their own self-autonomy. To that end, we had a submitter who said something quite poignant, I thought, and we heard him in Christchurch. And it may not be his original quote, but it's a good one, so I want to quote it back. And he said this: "Before you can distribute wealth, you have to create wealth." This agreement does that, Mr Speaker. This creates wealth. It creates wealth for Māori. It creates wealth for New Zealanders. And I commend this bill to the House, Mr Speaker.
The next call is a split call.